know, sorry. Had to take kids to driver's training. All right, I'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. Roll call, Lori.
Julia Hall.
Here.
Linda Baker.
Here.
Melissa Bliss.
Here.
Nicole Clover.
Here.
Kevin Hamilton.
Here.
Ben Carley.
Here.
Aaron Nowak.
Here, please stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Up first tonight is approval of the agenda. Are there any comments or questions on the agenda for tonight? Hearing none, I need a motion to approve.
Support.
Roll call, Lori.
Julia Hall.
Yes.
Linda Baker.
Yes.
Melissa Bliss.
Yes.
Nicole Clover.
Yes.
Kevin Hamilton.
Yes.
Ben Carley.
Yes.
Aaron Nowak.
Yes. Agenda is approved. Public comment? Any public comment tonight? Presentation. The ISD folks are here and going to do a presentation on the general fund budget proposal. And that's in the Google Classroom. Okay. I don't know if you want to step up to the podium just because
yes.
we're live streamed.
Yes, 'cause we are live streamed.
so they'll be able to hear better. Yeah.
All right. So you have 2 pages. It should be of the general fund ISD budget. And by law, we're required to present or at least give each local district a copy of our general fund budget. And so we need to present that in the month of May. And then you would take action to support or disapprove. If you disapprove, there must be comment made to that. And then all that information goes back to the ISD board. They'll review it, and then they'll take action on it in the month of June. We do have 4 separate budgets at the ISD. We have the general fund, the CTE, which is the Career Tech Education, the Information Services, which is a consortium budget, as well as the CTE budget, and then special education. And so this is only the one, and it's only general fund. And so there's 2 pages. The first one at the top left says revenue. The second one says expenditures at the top left. We like to provide a couple years of information, knowing that we're really talking about next year. But the first column is our actual approved audit of our year of 1920. And you can see halfway down where we had revenues over expenditures by $415,000, bringing our fund balance to $1.6 million or 27%. The column 2 is our actual budget ending 2021 school year. And we had revenues over expenditures by $528,000, a fund balance of $2.2 million or 35%. And then column 3 is our February adopted budget. Again, revenue over expenditures by $226,000, fund balance $2.4 million or 20%. And then column 4, the real reason why we're here, is our proposed 22-23 school year budget. And again, revenue over expenditures by $325,000, fund balance $2.7 million or 27%. Right there in the middle, I do want to point out, we have committed fund balance of $363,000. That's cumulative. It's something that we've carried over the last, I'm going to say 12 years. We did add last school year $100,000 to that fund that was board approved. But we're not projecting to add to that for next year at this point. The second page, we did list out 18 points of interest for the general fund budget. The first one being that I want to also say that we started working on this in January. So there are some things that have changed that we have not changed at this time, realizing that there's some things that have happened over the last couple months. But the first one is we did increase taxes by 2%, which equals around $12,000. Number 2 is a projection of 5% increase in Section 81. With our general fund, we do not receive a per pupil because we don't have gen ed kids. So this equates somewhat like a per pupil funding. With the 5%, it equals around 30,000. Number 3, the GSRP program. Right now, we have 721 slots, but we did not fill all them throughout the county. So we're slotted to have 647 in total for the county for next year. We did project an increase of 217 per slot to bring us to a total allocation of 4,567. And then also, we would include transportation amount of around 122,000. It does change a little bit, but 122 to 130,000 on top of that. Number 4 is our Early Childhood 32P Block Grant. We're budgeting the same as this school year, which is 159,000. And at this point, we haven't budgeted for carryover funds because a few of our grants, this one included, runs from October to September, and in January, when we're budgeting and planning for the following year, we don't really know where we're going to be at for a carryover. Number 5, Early Literacy Grant, budgeting $360,000 with an estimated deferred revenue of $382,000. Again, those early lit staff, we have 5 of them that go out to the districts. Number 6, maintained the McKinney-Vento, the homeless grant, the same allocation as the 21-22 school year, which is $40,000. That number really has changed since we've done this. It's doubled, so that is not reflected in here. Number 7 is the Rural Education Achievement Grant, and that was a decrease of just over $4,000, so that brings us to $26,000. Number 8 is Early Head Start Grant. That grant was, we had 2 separate grants. It has been combined into one grant, and it runs from March to February. So budgeting the July of this year to February of 2023, we're budgeting $610,000 during that period of time. We're projecting to use all of the ARP funds as well as the CARES funds for Early Head Start in the 21-22 school year, so 0 for next year. And estimating the new grant starting March of 2023 to February of 2024, along with the training and technical allocation of $911,000. The allocation here does not include any carryover funds, just because it's very far out. The COLA, the cost of living, or the quality improvement funds, those usually come later in the year. Number 9 is the HIL, the High Impact Leadership. There's no funds budgeted for next year because this is the end for our years this year. But we are including some match dollars for next year of $15,000. Number 10 is the Mental Health 31N funds. We're estimating $813,000 for next year, and that's year 5. We are estimating a deferred revenue of $1.4 million. That also supports the staff that are hired through community health. And we also have 3 local districts that participate where we reimburse them for staff this year. And then next year, we're looking to have 2 more districts at halftime each. Number 11, the 31P Trails Grant. That's a new grant for this school year, but we did not budget for that for next school year. Number 12, Trusted Advisors Grant, estimating $25,000, and that would run from January to November of 2023. Number 13 is the Preschool Inclusion Grant, and the same allocation. That was a 3-year grant period of $68,000, and next year will be year 3 of 3. Number 14, just outlining the retirement revenue sources. Number 15 included the transfer of funds from our CTE budget to help offset the business office as well as instructional leadership. Number 16 included the information service consortium personnel, department, and operational expenses. We split that number with the general fund and special education. And number 17 included funds for computer upgrades, cameras, furniture, and equipment. And then number 18 included the cap amount for insurance, and I've listed out the single, two-person, and full family amounts. So, any questions?
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We will be bringing this to vote at the May 16th meeting. So board members, if you have a chance to review and have any questions, try to get those answered before that May 16th meeting.
And you can email them to me, and then I'll get with Kelly and Teresa if they have questions. Thank you. You're all set.
You're dismissed.
I mean, you're more than welcome to stay, but. Thanks, Kelly.
Graciously say thank you. Good to see everybody.
At this time, the board is going to go into closed session as permitted under Section 8B of the Open Meetings Act for student discipline. Can I get a motion to move into closed?
Support.
Roll call.
Linda Baker.
Yes.
Elizabeth Bliss.
Yes.
Nicole Kober.
Yes.
Kevin Hamilton. Ben Carley.
Yes.
Leah Awe. Yes. Aaron Noack.
Yes. Board is now in closed session. We are back into open. In regards to student discipline, I'm looking for a motion for expulsion of student number 60780 with a reinstatement meeting in May of 2023 with the Board of Education.
Motion to approve.
Support.
Roll call, Lori?
Melissa Bliss,
Yes.
Nicole Colbert,
Yes.
Kevin Hamilton,
Yes.
Ben Carley,
Yes.
Julia Ah,
Yes.
Linda Baker,
Yes.
Aaron Noack.
Yes, motion passes 7-0. Okay, Superintendent Nort.
Nort.
Report. Mrs. Nash.
Nash
There you go.
report all together, right? Okay, so the first one is the Norton first grade field trip, which I'm guessing that Mrs. Graber is going to do that for us. As I don't see Ally, so first grade. I'd like to go to Indiana.
Hello, we plan to take about 50 kids to the farm to teach them about farm stuff. It's out of state, and that's why, I mean,
And in the classroom, board classroom, there is a description of what they're doing and how it applies to their standards, so.
Do you have enough chaperones for that?
yes. Would you like to?
Would you like to go to the farm, would you?
Well, I missed the Rock Museum last week with the.
Oh, yeah.
Bummed.
Oh.
There are plenty of other field trips. It's
Dutch
the Dutch
Creek.
one.
Dutch Creek.
Yeah.
Dutch Creek Animal Farm.
Any questions for Mrs. Graber?
And that'll be in the action items.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you. The next one, acceptable use policy, Nick presented that last week, or 2 weeks ago. There were no questions, so you will be voting on second read. If you don't have any questions, everything was good with that. So any questions for Nick? Okay, moving on, student handbooks for athletics, high school and middle school. We had the first read a few weeks, actually it's been over a month ago. There were no questions for any of those on the sections that they highlighted. The only thing that will be fixed on those are any name updates, which we will obviously have those updated before we post those. Any questions for Matt, Carrie, or Jen? And Jason?
I do have a quick question.
Okay.
Item 9 and 12B, it's not a highlighted area, but I just had a question on weapons and dangerous instruments. It says,
Which
it's-
page are you on? Sorry, very first one.
yeah,
Right at the bottom. Mine's the whole handbook.
Oh.
okay, so it's who?
21.
Are you looking at the acceptable
You're here.
use
Go up.
policy?
I'm looking at what
Oh, number
you said.
11. Did you say 21? I was really confused.
It's actually, yeah.
Oh, page 1. Okay, yes, go ahead, sorry.
Okay. It says a student shall not possess, handle, or transmit a knife with a blade of 3 inches or less. So I know what the state law says.
Yep.
But, so are we saying it's okay for a student to carry a knife that's over 3 inches?
No, so that's up for a long-term suspension or expulsion. That's automatic for dangerous weapons.
Okay, all right.
3 items or less could be just a 10-day expulsion, or a 10-day suspension. So anything over 3 inches would come to the board for further suspension.
I just wanted clarification.
Yep.
Mine's not a question necessarily, or may not even fit here. It's more of a comment, but just appreciation. The handbook looks good. I appreciate handbooks. You know, they're important, but just to plug anytime I can about discipline and restorative practices and the importance of that is, we know in public education, we're seeing some really concerning trends with the increase in severe behavior as well as absences. And so any opportunities to keep kids in school learning from these behaviors, not missing out on any further learning opportunities. So I just appreciated that in every handbook that was emphasized as looking at alternatives to suspensions, as that emphasis of keeping kids in school. Again, to learn from these behaviors and empowering teachers to make a lot of these decisions classroom managed.
All right, so no questions on that. We'll have a vote later in action items. Next one is a first read for partnership, so Mary Wilkinson will be coming up, and I think it's been a couple years since Mary's presented for partnership, yes?
I did during COVID, back when everybody was.
I know, right?
It's a little more familiar with it.
And again, this is in your classroom as well.
Yes, so basically, as you can see, we have a lot of changes in our handbook. Because our students are virtual, a lot of the policies and procedures don't really apply to us, or at least they're not easy to enforce, as most of the kids take their classes in the home and have extended learning opportunities, sometimes throughout the community or even at Barrows, which is some of the reason for the addition of these. In the campus classes in the past, basically the founding principles of self-governance and propriety have prevailed, but as the demographics have much more diversity, so is the need for diplomacy, I guess. So as such, we're going to adopt a more thorough representation of the district policy and procedures to also be extended into the other facilities as well, not just Barrows, but they are going to adhere to these as far as like if they're at CrossFit or if they're at the Y or wherever it is that they go. So lots of changes. I have to apologize. Some of the highlights on the table of contents didn't actually make it to the body, but the table of contents should be correct. So there was just a little bit of addition on page 8 for the attendance. Virtual attendance is very different, and we normally go over that at orientation, but now it's made it into this. And student parent orientation guide was also added as a part of the handbook. And so post-secondary options on page 9 were included on our website, but we are now putting them in the handbook. So the bulk of the changes have to do with student conduct and some of the policies as far as conduct on campus, specifically speaking to, and discipline. We have a combined handbook and course catalog. And so some of the courses that are highlighted that are new for next year is a class called Action. It's a drama class. Some other art classes, color theory, culinary art in the world, another different type of drama class, more so for like projects, and elements and principles of art. We offered that last year, but that was more of a combined class, and now we're separating it out so that students who join second semester would have to still take elements before principles as a prereq. The Spanish art and inspiration, a little less focus on a language, but maybe more on the culture and the things that they do in class, like the cooking and the learning about the different cultures in Latin America. Time Travelers is meant to be an art class for the Middle Ages. We've added a couple to the career and technology section, which is drone and electronics. We've offered them in the past as community expert pieces, but this time we're gonna, the online portion. These are all for the online classes. So you go down to critical thinking. We're also adding a new critical thinking class called Innovative Thinking. And the online classes for the different tinkerings, the junior, regular tinkering, and advanced tinkering. Basically, the level increases with difficulty as you go up, and the kits are much more advanced. Basically, a lot of critical thinking skills and some of the standards for technology, that kind of thing. The Multi-Disciplinary Pbl is just meant to incorporate several disciplines, but following the, PBL stands for project-based learning, to follow the kind of the guidelines for the project-based learning, and it's multidisciplinary in the sense that anyone could take it and apply it to sort of their learning, and that way students can also in the classroom have other people to collaborate with and get feedback and that type of thing, even if it's not the same discipline, I guess you could say. For our rec department, like environmental rec, we're offering a new class on impact, environmental impact, and one about recreation in national parks. And for the PE department, on page 25 and 26, we have 2 new physical education courses. One of them's a little bit more advanced, exercise mechanics and sports history. I think that's it for the classes. Like I said, I apologize, the highlights on the table of contents should be correct. I just didn't make it to the PDF, I guess. Are there any questions? Okay, thank you.
Mary, thank you. And then we'll do second read for that on May 16th. If you have any questions or think about, let me know. We have our first reading for our transportation handbook, and Kenny and Brian are going to present those. And this again also is in your classroom.
How you doing this evening?
Fantastic.
Well, we're going to tag team this, a little bit of information, a lot going on in the transportation world here recently. So, of course, as Nikki had stated, the first reading for our handbook, just kind of a reminder, about 2 years ago, we started the process of aligning the transportation handbook and policies with all the school building and facilities. So that way we had continuity between the school bus and classroom. The idea, of course, being is that educational opportunities present themselves both while they're in the bus, throughout the socialization process there, as well as when they get to the school buildings. One particular thing that did change since last year, and I'm going to reference page 8 in your, you'll be able to access it online in your board classroom. Page 8 of the PDF, we've implemented some strong language related to one of the more recent changes. House Bill 4201, Section 59 was put into effect in July. And we've actually seen that roll out now, and the details of that worked out across the state as far as the civil infractions and limits and regulations related to that. I wanted to give you a little context of what that's about specifically. In our school buildings, we all know, we don't allow people just to come in and just walk around free, willy-nilly. In fact, we spent a great deal of money in the last year and a half increasing our secure entryways in our facilities, increasing our protocols and procedures to help protect the environment for both our staff and our students. This same idea applies to school buses. In the past, unfortunately, it's not always been clearly understood that at the doors of the school bus, it's to be treated just as if the school presence in a facility was there. So one of the things that changed when they put this House bill into effect was that they actually increased the legal support in relation to crossing that threshold onto a bus. The language in the handbook is pretty straightforward, so I'm going to start with that, and I'll give you a little more depth as related to what the actual bill states. Again, on page 8 of the PDF, under important notes, and this will be going to all parents and anybody who registered, all parents of any student who registers for transportation services, it states, be advised, under House Bill 4201, an individual other than an authorized person shall not enter a school bus without the permission of the driver of the school bus, and may be subjected to a civil infraction and ordered to pay a civil fine of not more than $500. We actually have also added signage on the exterior of our buses by the entranceways, which clearly state this fact, so there's no misunderstandings on that. No one should be entering the bus without authorization or permission by the school bus driver themselves. As far as a little more detail related to this, some people actually have questions, okay, what does that mean exactly? Who's allowed, who's not allowed? So just to give a little more explanation here, under the House bill, it actually states specifically, and this will be very similar to what I just read with a little more detail. This is not provided in your materials. It says, an individual other than an authorized person shall not enter a school bus without the permission of the driver of the school bus. As used in the subsection, quote-unquote, authorized person means any of the following. A pupil. B, a person enrolled in a school-sponsored preschool program. C, a teacher or other school employee. D, B, a chaperone of the pupils authorized by the school, E, a person authorized by a school or the operator of the school bus for the protection of property or the health, safety, and welfare of the occupants of the school bus. A person shall not impede the progress or operation or both of a school bus. A person that violates subsection 4 or 5 is responsible for a civil infraction and may be ordered to pay a civil fine of not more than $500. A civil infraction under this subsection must be processed in the same manner as a civil infraction under the Michigan Vehicle Code, 1949, PA 300, MCL 257.1 to 257.923. The language is very clear, very specific, defines where all the rules are and everything else. And that'll be the biggest change that will be going out as far as informing our parents of this change moving forward.
I had an opportunity to speak in front of the House when this bill was going through. I was with about 3 other members from the Michigan Association of Pupil Transportation who was being invited to share some valid information to help move this bill forward, and we were able to get it done.
Great.
Okay, on the note, switching to the next item, which is an update on the EV buses. And for that, Kenny Jean, her team's been actually very busy with that, and I'm going to let her speak to the majority of these items, since she's been the one driving a lot of these initiatives. Some very, very exciting things that are reaching beyond just the limits of our district, out at the state level as well as national level.
Well, I'll tell you, the EV buses have been quite an experience. We were very excited to be part of the project that, the pilot project that took a total of 33 months until we were able to deploy the buses. A lot of us in the pilot group are a bit disappointed that we deployed them in January of 2020. And then we hit COVID in March. So a lot of the data that we were hoping, or the outcomes of the data that we were hoping to see, aren't as significant as we would like. And that is across all of the 7 districts that are involved in the pilot program. We're doing a lot of work to try to support and get out the outreach and communication part. Our drivers speak to the kids about what this means. One of our drivers, we actually had Lion Electric come. They rode with us. They had a drone flying over our bus, and our driver got to speak, and that is on YouTube. And she says if it weren't for the initiative that we've done that has changed the way that she felt about driving buses, that it's going to give our kids a future to be able to enjoy all of the beautiful things that we have around us by elimination of toxic gases and better learning environments. It's a pretty moving video. We continue to work with Walther Farms. We found out that we were using electric buses and they had done an update. And when they did the update, when we open up the back door, the emergency exit door, it buzzes nonstop. So we can get that corrected and be able to implement using the electric buses to support Walther Farms in the POSPAC program. Right now, we're currently using one of the dirty old diesel things. We continue to use our buses to support extracurricular activities. We do events outside of our curriculum when we can. We have to understand that our buses have a range of about 125 miles on a battery charge. So if they're running all day, or they run 2 routes a day, that does deplete the battery charge by probably 20 to 25%. It depends. We support McKinney-Vento, which takes us to the edge of the districts with these buses. We support programs during the day. We have ECSE. We have a lot of other things that we try to use to implement these programs and do some education with. Friday, I had a meeting with Miss Deb Schwartz from Great Lakes Energy. She is the one that has been in charge of the $14 million VW mitigation grant in distributing funds and money for alternative fossil fuel resources for school buses. With her and, I'm going to get this wrong, Dr. Anna Stephanopoulos. She is a director and doctor at Michigan University who has a strong passion for EV technology in school buses and trains and tugboats. And I've been in some interesting conversations about all that. So we're gonna continue to partnership with them and report data to them. So collectively throughout the state of Michigan that we can continue to participate and get some real data, because we know that EV vehicles are very, very popular out west. Rarely do we see them in places like Idaho or North Dakota or Michigan. We do know that there has been some rollouts in New York and Massachusetts. But we're a big part of what this means moving forward for student transportation. I'm very, very proud to be a part of that. And pretty excited about this too. In June, I was invited by School Transportation News, based in California, to be a panelist for EV student transportation implementation at an expo in Indy. So I'm really looking forward to that and working with Susan Mudd, who's an EPA attorney from Chicago, as our moderator. So we have a lot of neat things that we're doing. I'm always open to suggestions of any ideas that you may have that we can continue to do this outreach and share the information and continue to do what we can do to make our environment for our students better.
Opportunity to ask her. No, it's something different.
Oh. So Kenny Jean, you emailed me the other day with an opportunity that you were presented with. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, ma'am.
That and the Washington DC.
Oh, yes, I didn't know about this one.
Yeah, you didn't? Oh, I thought that's
No,
what that
but
was.
I feel like Kenny Jean kind of glossed over this a little bit, so this is huge, that we have a transportation director from little old Three Rivers, Michigan, coming to sit on a national panel in Indy and be one of the representatives and one of the spokespeople for the EV buses. Like, you glossed over that a little. That's a huge opportunity for you and for us and for you to represent the work that you did with the coalition here, so.
Well, and I was alluding to when you said something about trip, I was thinking about her trip to Washington DC where we partnered with the flights. So if you want to talk about that, just quick and.
We were invited. Actually, one of our students' parents has been involved with the Talon Honor Flights for quite a few years. And this is something she's passionate about. And what we were asked to do last fall is, one, use our EV buses as a learning opportunity and outreach outside of students to transport veterans of World War II, Korea, Vietnam, from the Kalamazoo airport to a venue in which they were honored with a ceremony, a homecoming ceremony that they didn't get when they returned from service. And pardon me if I choke up. So Angela contacted me a couple of weeks ago and she says, hey, what are you doing Saturday? And I said, I'm nothing. She said, come to DC with us. I want you to have this experience with us. I was blown away. I'm like, absolutely, I'm there. Tell me where I got to be and when. So I left the house at 3:05 in the morning, went to the airport. They had all of these veterans there. Some could walk, some couldn't. And they had a little breakfast. There was a prayer and a blessing of the flight. And there was some military, active military there, who were thanking these gentlemen for their service. And we got out on the tarmac and got ready to take off. And here were these active duty soldiers saluting these veterans out on the tarmac. It got me. And we got to DC, and there was the reception, and it's a mess. That these gentlemen got. And it was a busy day. Kid me not, 70 wheelchairs. Get them on, get them off, get them on, get them off. But, you know, we went to some very incredible places, and to see some grown men cry, and to have an opportunity without this Talents Honor Flight, because they don't pay a penny. It's all done by donation, and you know, I'm grateful to be able to be a part of that.
Yeah, we use the partnership with our buses to use those buses to transport them. So.
And when we got back, the drivers were there, and I got on one of the buses and told them that they were being transported in one of the 11 school buses in Michigan that are powered 100% by electricity, and they're like, wow, you know, who would have ever thought this? Drivers are grateful, they're humble, they volunteer to do it, because it's such a moving thing. Thank you for letting us do that.
This all ties directly into the outreach components of the grant that we originally initiated in August of 2002. So, wonderful alignment to support both our community, you know, as well as a part of it. So, you're doing a great job.
Thank you, Brian.
So any questions on the handbook or?
Yeah, but it's not nearly as cool as going to Washington or anything.
I got home at 12:20 the next morning.
No, I just wanted to plug again, Transportation Man is such a hard job, and driving kids to school safely, on top of the fact that you have behavioral issues on the bus. So as we're continuing to talk about prevention and response and any training opportunities for transportation staff, and in the same breath for our students at school to learn expectations on the bus.
So we, part of our MyKIP, which is way more than you guys want to talk about now, but continuing improvement for schools is a school-wide PBIS initiative, just to kind of refocus on some of our social and emotional behaviors, and which obviously leads to classroom behavior. So we're kind of hitting the reset button with that. Middle school and high school have focused it on already this year. Elementary has all along, but we're kind of at a point we want to get it as a district initiative, but also part of that is teaching bus expectations. So we've talked to Kenny quite often about bringing that in, and they have, do you still have posted expectations?
Oh, yes.
I was gonna say, I mean, I know I've been on, it's been a little while since I've been on a bus riding it with kids, but, so yeah, so we try to blend all of that together.
We just, this morning, as a matter of fact, after spring break, I had 2 drivers out at Park where the BIs came out, brought their kids out in a couple of groups, got to see the bus driver this way instead of this way, which puts a little bit more of a human element to it, and they, oh, wow, you are a real person. Just as a constant reminder, you know, and we try to stay on top of that. Tough.
Yeah. Well, and in the handbook, we have the bus expectations on the last page, which is the respectful, responsible, safe, which is pretty similar to all the buildings have as far as their headers. So
Right.
that kind of shows that blending.
Right, and I think about when Brian was talking about that new law about people coming onto the bus, who's permitted, and just leads back to safety on the bus, which is a lot of important people on there.
Yeah.
One of the nice things too, to your point, Ben, in our current practices, transportation department and the building administrative teams or student support teams, PIs and engage on a regular basis in working together to come up with disciplinary, functions for different offenses that occur, maybe at bus level, bus stop level, transitioning into the school. So there's a lot of communication there on a regular basis to maintain the continuity and expectation as well as sort of disciplinary. I'm not familiar with all your guys' practices, thank you. So that's a common thing that we continue to work on and try to maintain effective operation.
Can I just ask a quick question on, like going to and from sports and like the staffing? So obviously I have students and, just wanted to give you some feedback, like I think people totally understand and, but I think there's been a couple parents that have just said, hey, we're finding out at the last minute that there's not gonna be a bus home, but there's a bus there, and so I don't know, you could be giving proper notice and it could be, the ball could be dropping somewhere else, but of course, they said, hey, you're the board member, the next time that comes up, why don't you? So it's not a bad thing that I bring it up, I just think in general, like, I think everybody understands, I just think it's more the communication of what is the expectation if it's 3 o'clock and now there's not gonna be a bus at all and mom and dad are at work until 5, or, certainly I've said what a great job you've done, obviously with everything that we've been, but just athletics in general, you're still hearing some grumblings with, what is it not? So I just wanted to give that feedback. I have 2 different sports teams, 2 different kids, and I heard it on both, and so I was like, oh, you know what, I'll just at least say, hey, let's just make sure we have as best you can, obviously. And I'm not saying you have to, you don't even need I don't need an explanation because I get it, but I just think sometimes like their perception is their reality, and even though we all know that it's different, it might just be just a food for thought for you to give the why, or making sure that you're working with the athletic department, whatever that looks like, so.
Yeah, we do work with the athletic department. Of course, one of the problems, again, it's just the nature of the beast of the time of the shortages. We don't have drivers just use our own routes, and student transportation is always priority number 1. Everything else is after that. So
Totally get it.
there are, creative solutions. That's one thing we're looking at. We did an expansion with our vans, van utilization, coaches driving, trying to find some alternatives.
I know, I was bummed to find out I'm not allowed to drive a van. I'm like, I would drive a van, and they're like, you're not an employee.
Probably not have a lot of competition.
Yeah. I'm like, I'll drive a van if you need help.
Darn
But,
boss.
yeah, like I said, I don't think you need to solve it, I just, I said, hey,
Yeah, we are, I guess, just to validate, we are aware that's still an area that is.
and I supported you and I said the same thing, so I didn't want to not say what was being said.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Cool.
So my last piece, it's not on here, but I just want to take the time to appreciate all of our staff members. It is Teacher Appreciation Week, and yesterday was Principal Day. So all the principals back there that are so engaged in their work, happy Principal's Day yesterday, May 1st. But I've kind of worked this into staff appreciation, so working on a few things. Gave some of them some GG cookies today and going to work on the rest. So if you see a staff member, make sure you say thank you and appreciate them. But kicking off the week, I know there's a lot of PTOs. I went to every building today to see as many staff members as I could to say thanks for all you do. But there was a lot of treats out there. Delta, I think you were one at Andrews that treated them well. So they're going to be filled, their bellies at least today. And I know I was at Norton. Moe's was delivered by their PTO. I know Hoppin has something planned tomorrow. They were having sloppy joes at the high school. So feed them and they will come. So hopefully we don't have any subs this week. No, I'm just kidding. But I do want to recognize all of our staff does for Three Rivers Community Schools and how much I appreciate them. So that was my last thing.
board member comment.
Well, you can add to it.
And Carrie didn't send me the chocolate covered strawberry reminder I did a few years ago. She was like, we have to do that again.
That's okay. We had them at our house.
I gave it to the softball team.
Yes.
All right, up next, we're gonna move into our work session for the curriculum committee. Myself and Ben will be meeting with Nikki and Carrie. Finance committee, Julia, Nicole, and Kevin will be meeting with Blair and Nick. And the policy committee, Melissa and Linda will be meeting with Lori. How long do we want? 10 minutes?
10, it won't get 10 minutes, okay.
Thank you.
Just quick, because I think you'll probably want to talk about the new positions that they'll be posted. Okay. All right, curriculum committee. Ben, do you want to report, or would you like me to? Okay. Do you have that paper? Yep. So curriculum committee met to discuss the high school physical education fulfillment form. So right now, if a student participates in 2 seasons of any sport at the freshman, junior varsity, or varsity level, they will waive their physical education requirement. This also applies towards marching band and symphony band. So the desire is moving forward, starting with the freshmen next year. So everybody in the high school now will be waived. They're going to no longer offer the waived PE credit for the athletes. They're going to continue to waive it for the marching band and the symphony band.
Is this a policy against that?
It's not a policy, it's just an
Guidelines?
agreement that guidelines is a good, and it was never a policy, but we want to just bring it forth just in case you guys get any questions. So it's only affecting athletics. That was it. So finance, Julia?
Finance committee touched base on adding 2 positions, the student support specialist. We expect the first 2 years for it to be paid out of the ESSER funds, and then there's movement at the state level to add additional grant money to fund or, let me say, sustain mental health, so we should be able to cover this without expenses to our bottom line, or our general fund, I should say. And then we also have the addition of a technology integration specialist, which we want to use to divide the gap between curriculum and technology. That'll be done during the school year. In the summer, they want to use this person to roll out new tech, inventory tracking, and some other internal roles. That sound right?
Perfect.
And then they're both going to use a program evaluation to gauge the impact going forward, to make sure they're being used for what we want from them.
Policy committee?
I guess that's me. We have a number of policies that are being revised, but the biggest change here would be to add the language that says that employees have the right to dress in accordance with their gender identity. So just keeping that consistent. The next one has to do with our grant funds. And this really has to do with some federal and legal updates, just as far as the requirements that the grants kind of mandate. It's not really an option. The proposal, also with budgets exceeding $10,000, would come before the board for approval by the superintendent. Anything less than that, the superintendent has the right to kind of move forward with. The next one would be spending of federal funds, so the same type of update, just some legal updates. And that just basically talks about complying with the prevailing wage requirements. We have the rescinding of the use of credit and debit cards, and this policy really just takes on some new language that mimics the administrative order that we have, and so we're referring to these as purchasing cards. The language just seems to be a little more clear and concise. And then there was an update to, this is going to be 5325. We talk about the purchasing requirements, small purchases, as well as sealed bids. One of the changes that I'd like to just note on here is that Neola was recommending that we change the language for obtaining quotes to an adequate number. The policy committee is actually going to recommend that we keep that the same, to where if you're looking to obtain a quote or a price, that we keep it 2 to 3. But for sealed bids, we would change that language to state an adequate number of sealed bids. So a little more up for interpretation when we're looking for proposals to be sent in. But we would still ask that staff members are using the 2 to 3 quotes when looking for purchases. Does that make sense? Okay. Other than that, I think that's it. All for first reading.
second reading on May 13th?
Yes.
So those policies will be for second reading May 16th. Any questions, make sure you do. Good. All right, moving on to our action items. Norton first grade trip to Shipshewana. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the Norton first grade trip to the Dutch Creek Apple Farm in Shipshewana, Indiana, as presented. Are there comments or questions on the motion? Motion to approve?
Nicole Cooper?
Yes.
Kevin Hamilton?
Yes.
Ben Carly?
Yes.
Julia Ah?
Yes.
Linda Baker? Melissa Bliss?
Yes.
Aaron Noack?
Yes, motion passes 7-0. The acceptable use policy approval. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the acceptable use policy language as presented for inclusion into the student handbook. Is there comments or questions on the acceptable use policy?
Support.
Kevin Hamilton?
Yes.
Ben Carly?
Yes.
Julia Ah?
Yes.
Linda Baker?
Yes.
Melissa Bliss?
Yes.
Nicole Cooper?
Yes.
Aaron Noack?
Yes, motion passes 7-0. Student handbooks. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the 2022-23 Three Rivers High School, Three Rivers Middle School, elementary, and athletic student handbooks as presented. Are there any comments or questions on the handbooks?
Support.
Ben Carly?
Yes.
Julia Ah?
Yes.
Linda Baker?
Yes.
Melissa Bliss?
Yes.
Nicole Cooper? Yes. Kevin Hamilton? Aaron Noack?
Yes. Motion passes 7-0. Flat panel approval. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the purchase of flat panels as presented in our board packet. Are there any comments or questions? There being none, I need a motion to approve.
Support.
Julia Ah?
Yes.
Linda Baker?
Yes.
Melissa Bliss?
Yes.
Nicole Cooper?
Yes.
Kevin Hamilton?
Yes.
Ben Carly?
Yes.
Aaron Noack?
Yes, motion passes 7-0. And last, the TREA bargaining agreement. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the Three Rivers Community Schools and Three Rivers Education Association bargaining agreement as presented. The agreement includes the 2022-2023 academic calendar and salary schedule. Are there comments or questions on the bargaining agreement?
And just the people who are applicable, we just have to say abstain.
Abstain and conflict of interest. Okay. There being none, I need a motion to approve.
Support.
Roll call, Lori?
Linda Baker?
Yes.
Melissa Bliss?
Linda? Don't you have to abstain? Because she doesn't on the administrative contracts either. Have you voted on the teacher contracts in the past? She has not.
Right.
Because the legal rep said if it was past practice.
Wait a minute.
Have
I
you
thought she would
voted
get it.
on the TREA in the past? You have? Okay.
Not administration.
Let's start that again. Linda Baker? Melissa Bliss?
Yes.
Nicole Cooper?
Yes.
Kevin Hamilton?
Yes.
Ben Carly?
Abstain. My spouse is an employee in the district.
Julia Ah?
Abstain.
Aaron Noack?
Yes. Motion passes 5-0. All right, any public comments? All right, board calendar, May 3rd, the Three Rivers Community Schools Art Show at the Carnegie Center is going to start from 5 to 7 p.m. May 5th is Rotary Honors Night from 6 to 7 p.m. Unless Carrie does it quicker than that. May 13th is our GSRP Roundup from 4 to 6 at Hoppin. May 16th will be the Board of Education regular meeting, and May 26th will be the Three Rivers High School graduation. June 6th will be our Board of Education work session, and June 10th will be the last day of school, followed by June 20th, which will be the Board of Education budget hearing and our regular meeting. Any thing missing on the board calendar? Any board member comment tonight?
Nicole and I went to the Teacher Academy, and that was fun. There was, there maybe 15 or 16, something like that, yeah, asking some questions about sports service and whether we're gonna have
the senior parade this year. So that was good. Yeah, so they were all very, very nice, young people, and it was really fun to see what they had to say, and they didn't ask me any questions that were too hard, so
Thanks for going to that. I know that CT, they appreciate that.
I did have another one, it'll be quick. The annual special education, or St. Joseph County Parent Advisory Committee Special Education Awards are this Thursday. There were a couple of Three Rivers staff members that were nominated. I don't have the full list in front of me, so no more to come next meeting. Almost 100% positive that Darcy Chenu
Oh, yeah, Al, yeah.
won for support staff of the year, so. And I know I saw Travis Rohr's name on there as a nominee. I know there were others. So it's a great awards evening. It's the same time as honors night. So I will be at PAC Awards, not honors night. But
It's that time of
honoring-
year.
It's that time of year. But anyway, there were numerous folks nominated again. It's a great evening. So congratulations to all of them.
All right, I need a motion to adjourn. Roll call, Lori?
Melissa Bliss?
Yes.
Nicole Cooper?
Yes.
Kevin Hamilton?
Yes.
Ben Curley,
Yes.
Leah Awe?
Yeah.
Linda